Alrighty, welcome everyone to our TELedvisors webinar for May 2018. My name is Kahiwa Sabaya, and the idea for our session today was to give an opportunity for all of our members to share a small project or a project that's in progress or something that they'd worked on that might never ever make it to be a proper research article or something like that, but a way for us to be able to start to share some of the work that we do, because I'm pretty confident we all do really, really cool stuff that I'd love to hear more about. So we've had a number of fantastic volunteers step up for our first showcase, or show and tell. We'll hand over now to Francis, who is working over at QUT.
Hello everyone. I'm assuming everyone can hear me, and I'll proceed in that regard. Yes, I work at QUT, and I'm a learning designer here at the School of Law. So I work with law academics, supporting them mainly with multimedia tasks, supporting technical and design issues with Blackboard and third-party technologies, and occasionally get to talk a little bit about teaching and learning strategy stuff too. But I feel like my role is leans heavily towards the technical side, which is probably where my strengths are, so that's okay. So I thought I'd share just a project that we worked on this semester. We actually started about a year ago, actually. And that was in a unit called Real Property Law, where they look at property law issues, which includes things to do with state laws, between lease titles, but also between tenants of a building, and all of the different legal issues and scenarios that can come between boundaries. And one of the issues they had in this subject is, for a long time, they've been saying they want a visual aid to support discussing these, what are very visual concepts. So over the years, they've often drawn things on a whiteboard and had inconsistency in that. So they came to me as a developer and learning designer to say, can we look at how we can make this visual world, this visual space? So I was just going to talk about that process and a few lessons learned. And only it's a short session, so I'll keep it as short as I can. I just want to start by saying I've been at QUT just over a year now, and before that I was 8 years in the, I guess you'd call it, private sector, doing learning design for clients that included TAFE, RTOs, non-for-profits, some university work as well. But I'm fairly new to working in the academic environment. So I have a lot of interest in what Colin has to say about the definition of roles. And for me, it's been a very interesting experience coming to this. This little visual here represents a bit of a design process that I broke down for myself and a way to communicate to clients in how I approach creating digital resources or digital learning material. And this is basically the 6 steps here. I put this on LinkedIn. There's an article on LinkedIn. It basically says we gather information, learning resources together, which is always the first step. And then I try and make some sense of those resources. Is there a little, how do I get the little highlighter? Here we go, pointer. Thirdly, we make decisions about what are the appropriate technologies that can enhance teaching and learning. Sometimes we don't want to use technology, but those are really important decisions. Then usually a storyboard or template, build, and then test. So that's what I'm used to doing, and I kind of came into this role thinking, okay, I'm going to approach, I guess, every academic as a client, and I'm going to try and go with what I consider best practice in terms of design. To start with, I met with the team, and they got on the whiteboards as usual and scoped out this this dream of this visual space, visual environment. And it was messy, it was fun, and they dreamed up all kinds of ideas, everything from virtual reality to apps to Xbox games to just a website and everything in between. From there, they then drew up for me an approximation of some layout visuals of the land, so we could look at what are the key issues they're really wanting to teach, what are the key concepts, and how do we visually represent that. So that went to another phase of design. So you can see on the right here, there's the beginnings of dreaming up this tower, which we could explore all the different tenancy issues. And here, all the different land title issues. So the conflicts, for example, between native title and mining, that's an obvious one. Marine parks, farming land. It's all very interesting. As a learning designer, you get to learn a lot about lots of new things you never thought you'd learn. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. So I then got into Adobe Illustrator, had a lot of fun developing 3D objects in Adobe Illustrator. And there was a steep learning curve for me the first time I tried that. But I built things in a way that we could layer, rebuild, and then use multiple layers to represent the different scenarios and highlight different sections of a building, which I also did for the land. Yes, I will be quick. This is the land visuals. Again, layering it up. So there's probably about 100 different layers and different scenarios and different ways that I could position these elements. We then looked at 360 panoramic views and did some storyboarding around that. And that wasn't actually used this time around. And here's some of the final output. So we built this in Storyline. We ended up adding videos, progress, gamification, and it is being used by learners to do exam preparation as well as engaging with tutorial content each week. Okay, the reason I wanted to highlight this again is I have question marks about some key steps that we missed. Testing, no matter how much we planned for it, it never really happened. So in a way, this is a test, trying this semester. And we did not loop back and explore appropriate use of technology in different scenarios. Okay, that's just my point about not skipping the steps. Okay, just to wrap up, I've got one slide. These are just my main points I wanted to wrap up with. Real Property World has supported consistency because we're talking about the same world, the same context, it's the same story. So it's almost like a narrative that all the tutors, the teachers, students can all talk about the same space again and again. So let's revisit that space and how it relates to each story overlaps and relates to each other. Secondly, I think it's important, and something I've learned through this again, is to build digital assets that can be used in lots of different ways. So these visuals can be used in PowerPoint slides, handouts, assessment questions, learning objects, videos, build things that can be used again and again and repurposed. So we've built that in that way, and that's exciting for the future. It's important to remember multimedia enhances but doesn't replace the overall strategy. So I had to really stress to the team, if this thing falls over or it's not built in time, you still need to have the actual content and the guts of the course to run with. And finally, I've just learned designing under pressure in this environment, in a university environment, it's a little bit different from working in the corporate space in that I sort of have to pick my battles, know when to hold back and sort of help people learn a process one step at a time. And I do have to compromise, and I think that's important because, but you need to, the hard bit is working out what are you prepared to compromise in your design process, because there are time pressures and misunderstandings and people skip things, but you still have to deliver. So at some point, you've got to make those choices. Okay, that was quick. I'm finished.
Fantastic. Thank you, Francis. So we do have a quick question from Paul from CDU, the wonderfully emojied name attendant, who kind of had a question around building reusable objects. So how do you build something so that it can be repurposed? I feel like that's going to be a really meaty question, which I would love to see explored further on the discussion forum. But do you have any quick points about how you approach that?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, each part of the digital asset that you're building should be well documented and built in separate files. So even my Adobe Illustrator files, every illustration, every layer, everything is saved separately, so it's not baked into a complicated learning object at the end. So it can easily be repurposed, is what I mean. So storyboarding, creating individual elements, individual scripts, text-based as a starting point for everything you do. Yeah, basically, if you keep all the separate parts of the puzzle, you're going to thank yourself later when you need to pull the puzzle apart. Okay, that's just my summary.
Thank you very much, Francis. Love to see more of that conversation on the discussion forum over in our Moodle site. And there was some definite love for your graphic about explaining the process that you worked through. So I think that's definitely something that people are keen to probably be able to repurpose or reuse or take into their own context. So thank you very much for sharing that.